Revenge with Karen.
There was a fire in the break room microwave again, third one this quarter. No one knew how it started, but Olivia watched from her glass-walled corner as a product manager tried to smother the smoke with a tech conference tote bag. She didn't budge, just clicked through system dashboards as alarms chirped in the background. The rollout was live in 12 hours and no one, not even the arson squad that apparently made up marketing, was going to derail it. Servers were stable, the modules were green, and Olivia's name was on every line of the infrastructure map, even if you had to scroll down to the footnotes to find it. But they never did scroll, did they? 9 years she'd been at Valen Tech Solutions. 9. She'd been there when the office still had cubicles, when the coffee came in bulk tins labeled decent, and when security was one dude named Greg with a clipboard and a bad hip. She'd stayed through 3 CRMs, 2 acquisition attempts, 1 terrible Christmas party that ended with a VP in the ER, and now this, her system finally rolled out across all major clients, humming like a Tesla on morphine, and she couldn't even get a seat at the strategy table. They gave that to Chase. Of course they did. Chase, with his $300 haircut and his fingers steepled like a B-list villain. Chase once asked her in front of the whole team if backend meant she liked to work alone. Chase, who called himself disruptive like it was a compliment. Her new director, 6 months in, had already turned her daily stand-ups into innovation huddles, had banned passive voice from Slack, and installed a digital gong that sounded whenever a new client contract came through. It sounded exactly like a toilet being flushed on a plane. Fitting. And still, Olivia got the job done. She always had. Her department was the most profitable in the entire company. Her systems were the only reason customer success hadn't burned to the ground, and her designs were the quiet skeleton key behind their latest Series C pitch deck. Of course, none of that made it into the slide Chase presented to the board. In his version, success had arrived via the combined power of lean strategy, team velocity, something he called micro-win culture. Olivia, she was just continuity, like a stapler, like oxygen. As she reviewed the final checklist, encryption synced, QA flagged green, integrations confirmed, her eyes drifted to a small frame on her desk. It held a photo from 4 years back, her former boss Linda, the only competent CTO they'd ever had, and Janine from legal, all smiling with mugs that said IP Queens. Linda had retired. Janine had moved to Spain. And Olivia, she stayed. She built. She fixed everything. She made Chase's career possible, brick by brick, while he floated on buzzwords in bold fonts. She leaned back in her chair and let out a long, tired breath. The kind of breath you don't realize you've been holding for weeks. Something had shifted lately, hard to say what exactly. Maybe it was how Chase kept forgetting to include her in planning meetings. Maybe it was how HR had asked her to document her weekly output for internal transparency. Or maybe it was the way the CEO, Neil, had walked past her at the last all-hands and called her Vanessa. Either way, the mirage of stability was cracking. Hey, quick pause. If you've made it this far, you're clearly one of the good ones. If you're enjoying this story, do us a tiny favor. Tap that like button and hit subscribe. 95% of folks don't. It means the world to us and keeps stories like this rolling. Now, back to Olivia, who, despite being surrounded by suits and sycophants, had one thing they didn't: leverage. They just didn't know it yet. She clicked open a system window buried beneath 6 tabs. Her architecture, nicknamed Spine, ran everything: billing, permissions, uptime routing, API thresholds. There was a line of code near the bottom of the main framework, innocuous to anyone else, but Olivia remembered it. She'd written it during a caffeine-fueled weekend rebuild after their backend had imploded during a botched client demo. She didn't smile, not yet, but her eyes sharpened. They'd built their empire on her blueprint, and she was about to walk right out the front door with the foundation in her back pocket. The meeting invite was titled Performance Optimization, Chat's smiling face with smiling eyes, which was corporate for "we're about to gaslight you with a smile." Olivia knew the tone the second she saw the emoji. Chase had started using them recently, trying to seem casual while gutting people's careers with the grace of a drunk surgeon. She still showed up on time, dressed like always. Sharp blazer, flat expression, hair pulled back like she was going to war. She didn't bring a notebook. She already knew this wouldn't be a conversation worth remembering. She sat across the table sipping from one of those absurd gallon-sized motivational water jugs. The side said, "You got this," in bubble font. Irony was dead. Liv, he began, using the nickname she never approved. I'm going to be real with you. He leaned back like he was about to tell a campfire story, fingers laced behind his head, smugness leaking from every pore. We did a little cost-benefit review of departmental overhead, and well, long story short, finance says you're punching above your budget. Olivia blinked. Once. You're an asset, obviously, he continued, tone implying the opposite. But with the direction we're headed, agility, speed, profit per head, we need everyone to be operating lean. So here's where we landed. He flipped over a single sheet of paper, like it was a menu, like she was ordering humiliation a la carte. Option 1, he said, tapping the page with his stupid cross-fit calloused finger, you stay on, with a 30% pay adjustment. Still salaried, still benefits. And hey, maybe down the road, there's room to bump that back up if we crush Q3. He said crush like he owned a skateboard. Option 2, you walk. Totally your call. No hard feelings. We're all adults here. Then the kicker, we can replace you by tomorrow. The silence that followed was so long it made Chase shift in his seat. Olivia didn't move. She just looked at him, dead center, till he stopped bouncing his knee. She finally stood, smoothed her jacket, picked up the paper. And then, in the calmest voice she'd used all week, she said, okay. Chase blinked. Wait, okay too, I'll walk. She folded the paper once, then again, tucking it neatly into her bag like it was a dry cleaning receipt. Thanks for the chat. He actually sputtered. Hold on, Liv, don't you want time to think about this? No. She was already at the door. We were hoping you'd be open to. You were hoping I'd beg, she said without turning around. Guess I'm just not optimized for that. She walked out of the conference room without a single backward glance. The HR rep sitting in the corner, silent until now, looked like she was watching a horse escape from a burning barn. Chase, on the other hand, looked like someone had unplugged his PlayStation mid-match. Down the hall, Olivia passed marketing. Someone was trying to figure out how to make an AI-generated dolphin mascot look less predatory. Past product, where a junior dev was arguing with the coffee machine. Past finance, where Neil the CEO was talking loudly about crypto to someone who definitely didn't ask. She walked straight to her desk. Took 10 minutes, packed slow. Laptop, company issued, left it. Mug with world's okayest manager, hers, took it. The framed IP Queen's photo, absolutely. And at the bottom of her desk drawer, tucked under some unused PTO forms and a stress ball shaped like a chicken, a single, pristine folder labeled Exit Olivia H. She'd started prepping it 6 months ago. Just in case. Because the truth was, Chase was right about one thing. They could replace her by tomorrow. What he didn't know, by next week, they'd be calling her to ask how the damn system worked. And she wouldn't be picking up. Texts started pouring in before she even made it to her car. From Naomi in product, you left, like left. From Jenna in HR, are you okay? That meeting wasn't supposed to go that way. From Peter in DevOps. Tell me you torched his house on the way out. Fire by the time she pulled out of the parking garage. Her inbox looked like a funeral guest book, equal parts condolence and shock, spiced with a handful of thinly veiled I always thought he was an asshole messages. But Olivia didn't respond. Not yet. She drove home with the windows down, letting the wind scrape away the remnants of fluorescent lighting and Chase's discount cologne. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even listen to music. Just the soft hum of tires on asphalt, like white noise for a mind already calculating. She got home, kicked off her shoes, fed the cat, poured a glass of Pinot, and opened her personal laptop. The file was still there. Amendment 6B-OH final PDF. It wasn't flashy. No bold font. No underlines or warning flags. Just 3 paragraphs added quietly to her contract back when the company restructured engineering, and she had been the only person left who actually understood the system stack. Legal had drafted the amendment as a formality, language to clarify ownership of non-core proprietary frameworks developed by named architects. Olivia had reviewed it with Janine from legal, who winked and said, well, technically, this makes you the architect of the universe. They laughed about it over overpriced sushi. No one else had ever brought it up again. Clause 2, subsection A. In the event of voluntary separation, license to any system architecture uniquely authored by said architect and not expressly transferred shall terminate. Clause 3. Reinstatement of said license shall require new negotiated terms in writing. At the time, it was more about protecting herself if the company tried to pin a failure on her after the migration. But now it was something else. A loaded chamber, a silent kill switch. The next morning, she met Naomi at a diner halfway between their neighborhoods. Over eggs and burnt coffee, Naomi stared at her like she'd just announced she was moving to Mars. "You actually left?" Olivia nodded. "I did. Chase thought you were bluffing." "He doesn't know how to read a room," she said, sipping her coffee, "or a contract." "You should sue," Naomi hissed, keeping her voice low even though no one was listening. That was retaliation. "He's been targeting you for months. You could own his car, or at least his ridiculous gym bag." Olivia gave a thin smile. "I don't want his car. I want his future to be very complicated." Naomi blinked. "God, you're terrifying. I prefer precise." Later that afternoon, she walked into a small office suite above a wine bar downtown. No logos on the door, just a brass plate that read, A. DeWitt-esque. Amanda DeWitt had once handled a licensing spat for Olivia's cousin and made a tech firm pay triple after they stole a code snippet. She had a silver bob, a steel stare, and a Rolodex that hadn't been ironic since 1996. Olivia handed her the folder. "I'd like to file my formal exit paperwork." Amanda flipped through it with surgical care. "You kept everything? I had a feeling I might need it." "Smart woman." Amanda paused, tapping a page with her nail. "This clause. The termination of the internal license. Did they sign this 4 years ago? I had Janine notarize it. There's an email trail in the archive." Amanda looked up, impressed. "You know they're going to panic." "I'm counting on it," the lawyer smiled. "You want to sell it back to them? Eventually. But not yet. Let them sweat." Olivia left the office just before sunset. Sky was smeared with pink and orange like someone had taken a paintbrush to the horizon and called it even. She sat in her car a minute longer, letting the day settle. They thought she was gone. They thought she was done. But the architecture still hummed quietly on their servers, each line of code like a fuse she hadn't lit yet. Let them run it. Let them gloat. She was done waiting. The office smelled like old paper and espresso grounds, kind of scent that clung to leather briefcases and attorneys who read contracts like scripture. Amanda DeWitt sat at her desk, thin reading glasses perched low on her nose, red pen in one hand, legal pad in the other. She didn't ask Olivia how she was feeling, didn't offer condolences. That wasn't her style. Instead, she greeted her with a quiet nod and slid the packet of exit documents across the mahogany like it was a classified dossier. "The clause is here." She tapped the page, not even looking up. Page 6. Amendment 6B folded into the full separation agreement. I added language reaffirming the original IP carve-out, clean, tight, and forcible. No wiggle room. If they try to argue retroactive transfer, we've got the original emails, timestamps, and notarization trail. Olivia gave a small nod. She'd expected no less. "You don't want to push damages?" Amanda asked, eyes flicking up for the first time. "We could. They iced you out deliberately. I could argue a hostile environment, maybe even constructive dismissal." "I don't want their money," Olivia said evenly, "just the silence that follows a mistake." Amanda studied her for a second, then nodded, then let's sign. The pen was heavier than she expected, black lacquer, probably gold-tipped, a gift from some grateful founder. Olivia held it still in her hand for a moment, kind of pause that feels like the breath before a fall. Then she pressed it to the paper and wrote her name with deliberate, calm strokes, Olivia. She dotted the I like she was closing a door. Amanda immediately pulled the page, made a high-quality copy, and sealed it inside a thin manila envelope. No logo, no label. Just a date in the corner, 10.12.25. "This copy stays with me," Amanda said. "The event they try to claim ignorance, we serve them this version and the original clause. No way out. You'd be shocked how many lawyers try to bluff their way through a clause they never saw coming." "I wouldn't," Olivia murmured. Amanda smiled, just barely. "True. You've been playing chess longer than most of these boys have been allowed near a mouse." Outside, the city pulsed through windows dusted in October haze. People were rushing to meetings, bumping lattes into elbows, speed-walking through purpose they barely believed in. But inside that quiet office, time had slowed. Just a pen, a signature. A single folder slipped into a file cabinet with a metallic thunk that sounded like a trap being set. Amanda poured herself a finger of scotch, 3 in the afternoon, but neither of them commented. "Do they know yet?" she asked. "No." Olivia folded the remaining documents and slipped them into her bag. "They think I walked out angry. Burned out. Easy to replace." Amanda's eyebrows lifted. "Let them. They're launching my system next week," Olivia added casually. "Using the framework you built and the exact schema I flagged in the clause." Amanda let out a low whistle. "That's not a launch. That's a countdown. Olivia stood, smoothed her jacket, checked her phone, 2 missed calls from Neil, the CEO, and a Slack message from someone in ops asking for a login that no longer existed. She walked to the door, paused, turned slightly. If they call, depends, do you want to hear them beg? I want to hear them realize, Olivia said, that's better. She walked out without another word. Cool air greeted her like an accomplice. She didn't feel victorious. Not yet. This wasn't the climax. This was the scalpel in the surgeon's hand, clean, sharp, and steady. By the time she reached her car, the sun had dipped behind the buildings, casting long shadows across the parking lot. She got in, started the engine, and let her hand hover over the radio before pulling it away. Silence felt better. There was nothing to celebrate. Not yet. Chase held court like a man who thought charisma could replace competence. He was in the middle of the open floor, pacing slowly between desks like a tech bro Moses, arms folded behind his back, talking just loud enough to make sure every corner of the office could hear him. This is what lean looks like, folks, he said, gesturing like he just invented minimalism. Less bloat, more bite. Streamlined, agile, faster pivots, fewer layers. Olivia, from a nearby cafe patio across the street, stirred her coffee with a slow, amused hand. Through the window, she could see him beaming while the engineers behind him quietly panicked. Lana, her old team lead, was frantically scrolling through one of the admin dashboards. Jason from QA had a sticky note on his monitor that just said, Red Sharpie. Someone in DevOps was hunched over with both hands on their temples like they were summoning a demon just to understand the latest deploy. And Chase had the gall to say, Olivia left behind some great groundwork, but we're taking it to the next level. By next level, he meant brute forcing a deployment with zero documentation and deleting the folder labeled Do Not Touch Legacy Structure Map. From her spot in the sun, Olivia smiled faintly and sipped her coffee. The system wasn't crashing yet. It wouldn't, not immediately. That was the genius of what she'd built. It would work until it didn't, until someone pushed the wrong config, or forgot the sequence for permissions validation, or tried to override a container without mapping the failover paths. They wouldn't even see it coming. The message came in while she was halfway through her croissant. From Mara S. Lexarian Systems, subject, lunch. Adi, heard you're free these days. We're in the market for brains, not buzzwords. You around tomorrow? Lexarian, direct competitor, same space. Bigger budget, real leadership. Olivia stared at the screen for a second, then typed a reply. Let's talk, I like lunch. She hit send and looked up. Across the street, Chase was high-fiving someone in HR like a golden retriever who just got praised for eating his own leash. Back inside the building, someone had triggered a permissions error in the billing module. Olivia could almost hear the groan from Lana as she clicked through lines of code she'd inherited but never written. Her phone buzzed again. A DM from Peter in DevOps. This system is a goddamn Rubik's Cube made of tripwires. You didn't leave documentation on purpose, did you? She replied, everything's documented, just not where they'd think to look. Because here's the thing, Chase hadn't just underestimated her, he'd underestimated history. And history had a version control system of its own. 3 years ago, Olivia had fought to keep her team when upper management wanted to outsource back-end architecture. She'd built proprietary fail-safes, taught edge case testing protocols, established a custom framework that wasn't just complex, it was personalized. Now, that personalization was a curse they couldn't unwind. Let them have their week. Let them walk around high on their own spin. She wasn't bitter. She wasn't petty. She was waiting. Because when it broke, and it would, someone would remember her name not as that senior engineer who left, but as the only person who ever actually knew what the hell they were doing. And by then, she might just be busy, with a lunch, or a licensing meeting, or watching the fire from a balcony while sipping something cold and very, very expensive. Chase adjusted his collar in the mirrored glass of the 16th floor elevator, grinning at his own reflection like it owed him money. His presentation deck was loaded. The keynote animations were dialed in. The title slide read, Valen Tech Next Gen, Scalable Infrastructure for Explosive Growth. He'd rehearsed every smug beat of this. Next Gen was Olivia's system with a few paint smears on it, dressed up in Chase's buzzwords, and rebranded like he'd personally birthed it out of a think tank in Palo Alto. Behind the conference doors, the boardroom buzzed like a charging port. 11 members seated. 3 major investors on Zoom, their video feeds crisp and clear from hotel suites and ski homes with better furniture than the office itself. A large monitor displayed the welcome screen with Chase's name spelled in all caps. Chase Miller, Director of Engineering Strategy. He'd added strategy to his title last week. No one had noticed. He strutted in with his usual flair, slapping backs, flashing a can't-lose grin that had all the sincerity of a bumper sticker. Team, he began, clicking his presentation remote with theatrical pause. Today we talk scale, we talk speed, and we talk dominance. Slide 1, a graph with an aggressive upward slope. This system, he said, pacing slowly like a motivational speaker who just finished a juice cleanse, has reduced our deploy time by 48%, boosted uptime to 99.98%, and cut our DevOps costs by nearly half. Why? Because we're lean, because we're modern, and because we had the vision to build something ours. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Neil, the CEO, nodded. The investors leaned forward. One of them, older man with a face like a hawk and a voice like a tax audit, asked, "This is the same system from the Q2 white paper?" Chase nodded, upgraded, hardened, ready to scale to 10 times our current capacity. Our architecture isn't just future-proof, it is the future. Slide 2, technical schema Olivia had drawn up over a year ago. Only now, stripped of her initials, renamed, color-coded in Chase's favorite electric disruption blue, walked them through containers, microservices, custom API pipelines, all engineered by Olivia, but now repackaged as Chase's unified deployment protocol. Every nod from the board was a stolen trophy. Every approving grunt from the investors was a check being written in his mind. And at the bottom of the slide deck, highlighted in bold and underlined for emphasis, Series C readiness $40M round, additional on next-gen system deployment. Chase could already see it. The press release, the LinkedIn endorsements, the podcasts. He was already imagining his email signature with a new title, VP of Infrastructure Innovation. Maybe throw a global in there for good measure. Across the city, Olivia sat at a quiet cafe, laptop open, noise-canceling earbuds in. She wasn't watching the presentation yet, but she knew it was happening because the usage logs told her everything. They'd spun up 2 staging environments that morning. They'd pulled from the same core container she'd authored years ago, the one with the passive authentication fallback embedded in the logic tree. The one that required a handshake key only she held. She watched a blinking prompt appear in her terminal. Unauthorized license escalation attempt detected. Instance ID, VAL Core 07, she smiled. Just barely. Back in the boardroom, Chase clicked to his final slide. A looping demo video showed a dashboard interface running like clockwork. "This is live," he said proudly. "Real-time usage, already integrated with our top-tier clients. Seamless, fast, secure." A round of nods. One investor clapped softly. Neil turned toward Chase. "Can we commit to this for launch in 2 weeks?" "Oh, we're past ready," Chase said. "We're there." And then, almost as if the universe had comedic timing, there was a knock at the boardroom door. A man in a gray suit stepped in quietly. Legal, carrying a single sheet of paper. Chase's smile didn't fade yet, but his eyes flicked toward the man. The air changed, just a little. Neil furrowed his brow. Something wrong? The lawyer didn't answer. Not yet. But Olivia, she was already watching the system slow. Not break, slow, just enough. Just the start. Let him have his moment. Let them clap. The final slide was still up. Chase's name still shining. But beneath the code, in the veins of the system, the timer had already started. Chase's mouth was mid-sentence, something about next-gen scaling elasticity, when the lawyer's heels clicked across the boardroom floor. The sound alone was enough to slice the momentum in half. The room, once buoyant with buzzwords and projected market caps, froze under the sudden weight of a presence not scheduled on the calendar. Man in gray, Harold, legal counsel since the days when Valen Tech shared office space with a frozen yogurt franchise, walked straight to the head of the table without eye contact or preamble. In his hand, a single printed document. No folder, no laptop. Just one page slightly creased, like it had been pulled from a drawer with shaking hands. "Apologies for the interruption," Harold said, voice firm but careful, like he was diffusing a bomb that smelled like toner. "There's a matter that requires immediate attention. Legal conflict concerning the system currently under discussion." Chase chuckled nervously, remote still in hand. "I think we're good, Harold. We've got clearance on all of this. It's already in prod. I went over it with FinTech and Ops. We're all green." Harold didn't look at him. He addressed the board directly. There's a licensing clause embedded in the IP framework of the spine system, the architecture this rollout depends on. One of the investors leaned forward. Which clause? Harold unfolded the document. His voice was steady. Clause 2, subsection A from the Architect's Employment Amendment, reads as follows: license to use proprietary framework shall terminate upon voluntary separation of architect. Silence. The kind of silence you feel in your teeth. Chase blinked, once. Then again. Wait, what? Harold continued, eyes still on the paper. The system you're presenting today, built on that framework. Architect of record, Olivia Hayes, voluntarily separated from the company 6 days ago. The CEO, Neil, slowly turned his head toward Chase. You let her quit. Chase's face did something unnatural, like his entire skull forgot how to hold expressions. I didn't know about a clause. No one said anything about a termination trigger, because no one read the amendment, Harold said, still calm, still deadly. But she signed it. Eagle signed it. It's valid. It was buried, yes, but it's binding. A low, shocked breath passed through the boardroom like someone had opened a freezer door. The investor on Zoom who had been smiling 10 minutes ago now looked like someone had canceled Christmas. Another was already muting his feed and turning to someone off-screen. A third closed their laptop entirely. Chase stammered, sweat beginning to glisten under his collar. But we already deployed. We're live. Harold raised an eyebrow. Then you're live with unlicensed architecture. And he tapped the name at the bottom of the page, now holds the keys. Neil leaned back in his chair. Slowly, the look on his face wasn't anger. It wasn't even confusion. It was the precise moment disbelief gave way to dread. She walked out with our spine, he said quietly. And no one stopped her. Across the city, Olivia's phone buzzed once. Short automated alert. Instance VAL Core 07 flagged for unauthorized execution of restricted framework. She sipped her tea and didn't look at the screen. In the boardroom, the demo video on Chase's final slide looped mindlessly. Glowing graphs, dummy client names, seamless transitions between dashboard panels. No one was watching anymore. Neil turned to Harold. What happens now? Harold adjusted his glasses. That depends. If she's in a good mood, maybe she'll license it back. And if she's not, the lawyer paused. Then you've got about 48 hours before the system begins shutting itself off. One module at a time. Chase's remote slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a plastic clack that echoed like a gunshot. No one picked it up. You let her quit. Neil's voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The way he said it, quiet, stunned, almost reverent, cut through the boardroom like a scalpel. Chase opened his mouth, closed it. The blood had drained from his face so fast he looked like a mannequin left out in the rain. I thought she was bluffing, he said, voice cracking like a teenager's. She didn't say anything about the IP. She just left. No fight, no drama, just walked out. Harold didn't even look at him. He was already bent over whispering to another counsel at the far end of the table, passing the document like it was radioactive. Neil leaned back in his chair, eyes glazed, the gears in his brain visibly locking up. She didn't just walk out, he murmured. She took the system with her. Across the room, a VP from finance slid his chair back, stood up wordlessly, and slipped out of the room with his phone already to his ear. Two of the investors on Zoom began muting their mics. One disappeared from the screen entirely. Chase rubbed his temples with both hands, mouth still moving. No one was listening anymore. Harold turned back to the group. If you'd like to attempt a rapid renegotiation for temporary licensing reinstatement, I recommend someone reach out immediately. Before she decides to make an exclusive deal with a competitor. Neil blinked slowly. Does she have that power? Yes, Harold said. She had it 3 years ago. She has it now. Did we ever try to buy out her rights? No one thought we needed to. Chase finally looked up. Small, I didn't know. That's the problem, Neil said. You didn't know, you just assumed. The boardroom felt like it had shrunk by half. The temperature hadn't changed, but everyone was suddenly sweating. In the silence, someone's stomach growled. No one laughed. On the screen, the demo dashboard was still looping, still beautiful, Olivia's work, dressed in Chase's lies, now taunting them in high-res clarity. Kill the presentation, Neil muttered. Chase fumbled for the remote. It had fallen to the floor earlier. He crouched down, retrieved it, and clicked blindly. The screen went black. Call her, Neil said, standing slowly. Before she decides we're not worth the price. Who? Chase asked, still frozen. Who the hell else do you think? Chase stood there, phone in his hand, but didn't dial. He looked like someone had drained 10 years of youth out of him in under a minute. His hair, meticulously styled just that morning, now looked like it belonged on someone apologizing in a courtroom. Do you think she'll pick up? Harold looked at him like he'd just asked if gravity was optional. Across town, Olivia sat under a quiet awning, her lunch untouched. Her phone was face down on the table, buzzing once, then again, then again. She didn't reach for it. Not yet. Instead, she looked across the table at Mara from Lexarian Systems, who stirred her iced tea like she had all the time in the world. "Looks like your old firm just realized you were the product," Mara said casually. Olivia smiled. Not smug, not cruel, just calm, let them stew. Back in the boardroom, someone finally whispered, "She's not going to answer, is she?" Neil closed his eyes. "Not unless we make her an offer." And now, at last, they understood she hadn't quit. She'd exited, on her terms. The only way back in was through her. The waves rolled in slow and even, hissing against the shore like they had all the time in the world. Olivia sat barefoot in a canvas chair, laptop balanced across her thighs, sunglasses perched low on her nose. Behind her, a pale stucco villa framed by palm trees. In front, a view that cost more than Chase's entire wardrobe. Her inbox had 7 unread messages from Lexarian, 3 from 40s Tech, one very polite follow-up from a startup in Austin that had once ghosted her after asking for a quick peek at her deployment logic. She ignored them all for now. Instead, she watched her terminal. Another usage alert pinged across the screen. Instance VAL Core 07 attempting unauthorized schema patch. Access blocked. She sipped her drink, something with lime, crushed ice, and the scent of vacation. The phone rang. She let it ring twice. Then 3 times. Then, finally, she picked it up. Olivia Hayes. "Hi, Olivia." The voice was stiff, formal, tired. "This is Grant Feldman, General Counsel, Valen Tech." She almost said, "I know." But silence did the job better. "We'd like to open a discussion," he said, choosing each word like it had to pass through a legal sieve first. "About reinstating limited access to the Spine framework." She let the moment hang. "You're asking to license it back," she said eventually. "Yes. On terms that." In talks with 2 other firms, she interrupted gently. "Both with bigger deployment budgets. One's willing to double our standard rate." Grant cleared his throat. "We'd be open to discussing compensation." She smiled, not out of spite, not out of ego. Just the soft, quiet smile of someone who'd played the long game and watched the last piece slide into place. "Triple," she said. "Minimum." There was a pause. "That's a significant increase." "It was the damage you're currently mitigating," she said. "I assume you've already notified investors that the system is frozen at core logic level." Silence on the other end. "Then, we're assessing options." "Option 1 is me," Olivia said. "Option 2 is rebuilding from scratch. That'll take, 8 months, a year, assuming you find someone who understands what I wrote." Another beat. Then Grant's voice came quieter. "We'd like to make a bid." She nodded to herself, not triumphantly, not with satisfaction, just professionally. "I'll send a counteroffer by end of day. I'll need written confirmation that the framework will now be attributed properly in all external and internal documentation. And the licensing will include exclusive consultation rights." "That's acceptable," he said, quickly now. "Very acceptable." She ended the call without a goodbye. The sun was high now. The tide had come in. She turned back to her laptop, tapped a few keys, and brought up a new terminal window. Project: Spine V2 Deployment Advisor Module Client. Lexarian Systems status. In progress, she smiled again. Just a little. Because in the end, Valen Tech still ran on her system. But now, only on her terms. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.